Hi chess friends and welcome in this new video in which I'll talk about the Englund Gambit. The Englund Gambit is the gambit when white plays d4 as first move and now black plays e5. So black is giving this pawn to have counterplay. That's the point of this move. Before to looking the moves, it's very important to know that the Englund Gambit is not a correct opening. So it's opening in which if white plays well, white will be better. So it's opening that I don't think is a good idea to play in classical chess. Maybe you can try for fun or maybe in blitz games, but not more than that. In fact, if you see the most important games of world champions, of strong grandmasters, e5 is never played because it's not a good option. But this video will be good is to know this gambit, to have an idea about it, and also if you play with white 1d4, this video can be good because I'll show you how to play also with white, and this can be very helpful if you play d4 as first move. Number one, after e5, there is only one good move for white, that is d takes e5. The other moves are not great for white because if d5, I think after bishop c5 and for example c4, f5, black now has a strong center and the black bishop on c5 is well developed, so I think now black is also slided better. So even if e4, knight f6, black has an easy game, and bishop g5, sorry, let's say bishop g5 is for example a mistake because there is bishop f2, king f2, knight e4 with the double attack on king and bishop. So it's not a good option, d5. And okay, if you want to know it with black, clearly after d5 we go bishop c5 and if e4, knight f6, if c4. My advice to play 5, then knight f6, castle king side, d6, and black has a nice play and a nice attack on the king side. Okay, so for example, c3 for white doesn't look so good also because there is e4. Black again takes space on the king side. The plan would be to play maybe d5, bishop d6, knight f6, castle king side. And again, black has a nice play, a nice attack on the king side. So that's why I don't like c3. Another option, c4, but in my opinion doesn't make sense because black can simply take on d4, queen d4, knight c6, and black can develop quickly the pieces. So I prefer now the black position. So after e5, as I said, e3, okay, not great because after e3 take d5, it's like an exchange variation of the French that it's equal. Okay, it's not the end of the world, but with the white is trying to have as little advantage in the opening. So again, e3 is not a good option. That's why the only way for white to play for the advantage is to take the pawn. And very often is also what black hope, because all the most common tricks are all in this variation. So d takes e5 is the best move for white, but we must pay attention to some tricks that now can happen. After d takes e5, black can play also more moves. One option can be, for example, pawn f6, but after pawn f6, the idea is that if you take immediately, maybe black can join with the knight or with the queen with a very quick development, creating threats. My advice is don't take the pawn, but play simply e4. And e4 is a good move because you fight for the center, and it's good also because white is creating a counter trick now. Because after f takes e5, okay, is mistake f takes e5, because after that there is queen h5 check and double attack against the king and the pawn. Very important to know that g6 is not available because there is queen e5 with double attack and the rook is lost. So now black loses the game. For this reason, after e4, black cannot take the pawn, so maybe black can play knight c6. My advice is don't take the pawn, just develop with knight f3. The idea about it is that now black has the opportunity to take back the pawn, but it's very risky because after fe5 there is bishop c4, so now the material is equal, but this threat is too strong. So imagine knight f6, there is knight g5, and simply knight f7. It's a deadly threat. There is a fork on f7, so black is forced to play d5, trying to stop the bishop. But after bishop d5, again, white is up a pawn with a really nice position. So yeah, white is clearly better here. If black tries to play h6, there is knight e5. There is a nice tactics because after knight takes e5, queen h5, again double attack, and white is always up a pawn, not only up a pawn now because after g6, queen e5, queen e7, okay, there is the rook. So again, white is winning. So basically, I don't think f6 is a great variation for black because there is e4, and this 4 is a really strong move for white. Another try for black sometimes can be to play pawn d6. In this case, my advice is just to take the pawn, bishop d6, and then knight f3, knight c6. What's the point of this variation? Black idea is to play bishop g4, queen e7, castle queen side to then attack the queen with the rook. The rook on d8 could attack the queen on d1. So if, for example, we play 3, bishop g4, queen e7, and the castle queen side, then if we ignore it, so imagine we ignore it playing knight c3, we lose because there is, black loses, white loses, sorry. White loses because there is bishop h2, and the king is under attack, and the queen is under attack, so black can win the queen. So that's the black idea, developing this way and then castle queen side. If we know this idea, my advice is to play knight c3 first, if bishop g4. So let's go back 1 second. So d6, take, bishop d6, knight f3, knight c6, now knight c3. If bishop g4, we can just attack the bishop with h3. Not really important, these double pawns, because are connected with the g pawn, so are fine. And after queen e7, bishop e3, after castle, bishop d3, covering the line of the rook. And the result is white is up a pawn, white has bishop pair, so white is clearly better because white doesn't have bigger problems after, for example, castle. Even queen e5 is not so bad, for white, because white can play simply a4 and can simply stop the checkmate in this way. Very well, so let's go back. Okay, if bishop h5, more or less g4, bishop g2, queen e7, and here knight d4 is a strong move for white because the idea is that after the trade and queen d4, castle is not available because there is queen takes a7. So now white can simply castle kingside. Again, white is a pawn. White is also very active. b7 pawn is under attack. So yeah, white has a huge advantage here. So that's why also d6, if we know what to do with white, doesn't look so dangerous. The other line is bishop c5. It's a very common trick, very basic trick. So let's see what's the idea. The idea is that if you, let's say we ignore everything and we play knight f3, d6 we take, knight e7. If we take the knight, we loses because there is bishop f2, king f2, and white loses the queen. So white loses in this variation, but only because we took the knight. If you don't take the knight, white is fine because white has no problem. So it's just a trick. If you make this mistake, you lose, but if you know it, you can simply avoid, and white has a good position. In this line, after bishop c5, my advice to play, yes, knight f3 is fine. After d6, my advice to play knight c3, because if he takes, no problem, because you trade queens, black loses the right to castle, and then I can take back the pawn e5. So white will be up a pawn with the right to castle, so very good for white. And if knight e7, now maybe I take, and if now he plays this, I can just take the knight because this time the queen is protected by the knight, so bishop f2 doesn't work. If he plays knight c6, again I can play bishop f4. So my idea is simple. It's very simple. I want to defend the pawn. I want to develop with e3, bishop e2, castle, keeping my pawn up, and playing the future in this way. So bishop c5 is only a basic trick, hoping for big mistake for white. So in practical play, probably doesn't make sense. So the best line for black is for sure knight c6. Is more interesting this line, trying to take back the pawn. So white doesn't want to give the pawn back, so knight f3, and now queen e7, again trying to take the pawn. If now f6, again white can play the same e4, and we are again in the line that we watched before. So queen e7, and now bishop f4, keeping the pawn on e5 protected. This pawn on e5 is important because it's a pawn, but it's also a pawn that is blocking the black development. So in my opinion, it's particularly important for white to keep this pawn in the game. It's double pawn, true, but it's important because it's blocking the development. So queen b4 check, and now the queen is attacking the king and the bishop. So bishop d2, and now queen takes b2. Now very important, black is hoping for a very important mistake. A classical mistake could be here bishop c3. If you are white and you play bishop c3 now, you lose immediately because there is very strong bishop b4. Pinning the bishop, the queen cannot be taken for the pin, and now after bishop takes b4, knight b4 is impossible to defend c2 and the rook. So white loses here. For this reason, it's not possible for white to play bishop c3, but white must play knight c3. This move is really, really important. After that, okay, if knight b4, trying the fork, there is knight d4. If c5, trying to remove the defender, white is on time to play rook b1. First knight queen to go away, and after knight b5, queen a5, knight d5, it's impossible for black to stop the fork. Queen b5 doesn't work because there is the fork, knight c7, and the queen is lost. So this variation is really good for white. The best line for black is bishop b4. In this case, again, rook b1, queen a3, rook b3, queen a5, and now my suggestion is to play pawn a3, forcing the bishop to trade, because if the bishop goes back, white wins after knight e5, because there is the attack on c7 and attack against the queen. So the fork be forced and white wins the rook. For this reason, he has to take. And now my advice to play queen c5. I don't like queen a4 because the white plan can be to play h4, h5, rook h4, and the queen it's in big trouble. For this reason, queen c5 is more or less forced, and now e4. Very important, white. It's very important for white don't rush. Why don't rush? Because white has a positional advantage. The material now is equal, but white has more space. White has a better development, and the white idea should be basically to develop well the pieces and attack later. So now it's time to develop, and therefore makes sense to take other space on the center. An example can be 97, h4. Very important, very often to play moves like h5, rook h4, rook g4, or even to play h5, h6 to attack the castle. And then castle, for example. And now my advice is to play queen a1. Queen a1 is another important move. One idea is to defend the pawn, another idea is to make an X-ray attack against g7, and also to allow rook b5, because now rook b5 is not available because the bishop on c3 is not defended, but once the queen is on a1, the bishop on c3 is defended, and rook b5 can be available. So a possible variation can be knight g6, h5, knight f4, rook h4, and then b5 and rook g4. This can be an example in which white is clearly better, because white has strong attack against the king side, and maybe knight h4, knight f5, and black is in big trouble. This can be a position reached with curve play with both players. So this shows you why this line is not good for black, this gambit, because if white is prepared, black in every line will be in big trouble. So my advice is don't play the Englund, and if you want to play it just for fun, you can do it, or maybe in blitz games in which maybe you can opt that your opponent is not prepared and it doesn't have enough time to calculate the moves. But in general, my advice is don't play it, because it's not a good opening for black. So this video is, I think, very good to understand and to know this very popular gambit. It's very popular especially in the line games. with the both point of view, because when you study opening you must study with both point of view. And now also with white we know how to play against the Englund, so I hope you have now new knowledge, very important for your next games. Thanks for watching this video and see you soon. Bye.